Hello Buns, and welcome back to Cinnabun Sundays, our weekly video series where we talk about all things bunny. Today I'm doing a very highly requested video, which is rabbits versus hamsters. I have already done a video on rabbits versus dogs and rabbits versus cats. So if you are in the pet market trying to decide if a rabbit is the right pet for you, make sure you watch those videos, but come back here because I think that rabbits versus hamsters is one that is going to be very useful because they get compared a lot, but they are very different animals. I have had tons of pets in my life. I grew up on a farm. I've had horses, dogs, cats, birds, but something I have never owned is a hamster, so I did not feel like I was the person who should be speaking on the hamster side of things, so I brought in a little bit of assistance.
Hey everyone, my name is Victoria Rachel, and I'm so honored to be a part of today's video. I've been a passionate hamster owner since 2010, which actually prompted me to start my YouTube channel in 2011.
I am so excited to be collaborating with Victoria today. I'm sure that if you are subscribed to me, you definitely are already subscribed to her, but if for some reason you're not, make sure you hop on over to her channel. She has bunnies, cats, hamsters, but really she is such a voice in the small pet community, especially with hamsters because they are just such an underrepresented creature. So make sure that you are subscribing to her, check her out. I'm gonna link her channel down below. But seriously, Victoria, thank you so much for collabing today and helping us get this information out there, comparing rabbits and hamsters. So let's get started. Let's start with the lifespan. So for rabbits, I have already shared this in the dogs and cats video, but a rabbit's average lifespan is 8 to 12 years, which I think is a shock to a lot of people. I think a lot of people think that rabbits only live 2 to 3 years, but a healthy rabbit can live 8 to 12.
Unfortunately, hamsters live quite short lifespans, and on average they live anywhere from 1.5 to 2 years, sometimes living till 3 years or a little bit longer, but it's also not uncommon for your hamster to pass sooner than that due to bad genetics, because hamsters just have not been bred well in the pet trade.
Let's talk cost. I have done an entire video all about how much it costs to own a rabbit, but as an average, moneymanagement.org says that rabbits can cost anywhere from $600 to $1,100 per year.
A common myth is that hamsters are cheap pets, but this really isn't true. While they are cheaper than a rabbit or a dog or a cat, they still have a pretty expensive startup cost. They can range anywhere from costing $311 to $857 for their startup needs. Once you have all of their startup needs, they can be a little bit cheaper month to month because you don't have to buy a ton of things every month, but they aren't necessarily a cheap pet.
So now let's hop into care. This is where I think that a lot of times people think that the care is similar, but it's actually quite different. Rabbits should not live in cages of any type. They need to be free roamed. Free roaming can look like a lot of things. It can look like an exercise pen, it can look like roaming around one room in particular, or it can look like having access to the entire home. But rabbits need space to run, stretch their legs, and play, and should never be confined to a cage. Now, to be free roamed, your rabbit needs to be litter trained, which is quite easy, and they use a litter box very similar to a cat would, and they always have access to hay while in their litter box. Along with their hay, they're going to get a meal of a salad, some type of green every single day, as well as pellets to supplement any of those extra vitamins that they're not getting through their salads and their hay. As far as grooming goes, you don't need to take your rabbit to a groomer. They will groom themselves, but it is important that you are brushing them consistently, especially throughout their molting when they're shedding a lot, and trimming their nails about once a month.
When it comes to the basic hamster care that most people think they know, it often is very outdated. I'm just going to touch on some of the topics, but there is so much more to basic hamster care, and if you want to learn more about them, you can just check out my basic hamster care video. Hamsters do need to be in an enclosure. They can't just be free roamed like a rabbit, but their enclosures do need to be very large. While they are a very tiny animal, they move around a lot and they need so much stimulation. We recommend that you give your hamster at least 800 square inches of floor space, which is about 40 inches by 20 inches. It's also recommended to use an aquarium-styled enclosure because hamsters are avid burrowers. So you need to be able to put a deep substrate, usually about 8 inches or more of bedding. When it comes to diet, many people think that hamsters are herbivores, but they're actually omnivores, and they would eat a variety of seeds, grains, nuts, and insects in their natural diet. It's important that you're giving your hamster a variety just like they would eat in the wild, and giving them just a pelleted diet is not going to cut it. They should have a varied seed mix. Unfortunately, there aren't a ton of commercial mixes that are suited for hamsters. Oftentimes, they just don't have enough variety, or they have improper nutrition for a hamster. So I would either recommend going for the Bunny Nature food or looking into Etsy custom hamster seed mixes. When it comes to grooming, that is something hamsters are low maintenance with, as you don't need to brush them every day like you would necessarily a dog or a rabbit, and they don't molt or shed a ton, so you don't have excess hair floating around your house. Another important thing is to just keep an eye on their claws. They don't need to be trimmed regularly, but when they start to get older, they tend to grow longer, and then in that case you would need to trim them, but in most cases hamsters are pretty good at keeping their nails trimmed themselves. Another important thing to remember is that hamsters are also solitary animals in captivity, so it's important that you're only housing one hamster per cage.
As far as socialization goes, rabbits can be quite social, but they're very shy. Because they are prey animals, they're not going to be the most social of creatures, but they are quite curious. It will take your rabbit a little bit of time to fully trust you, but once you gain their trust, they can become quite bonded to their owners. As far as guests in the house, it kind of just depends if your rabbit is more curious or not. Cinnabun usually stays around but doesn't love to be touched by strangers.
Hamsters are prey animals, so it's normal for them to be shy and timid towards humans. They also are a nocturnal/crepuscular species. Oftentimes, when you want to go interact with your hamster, they're actually going to be sleeping. They're mostly active during the night, and hamsters have not been domesticated for very long. They aren't always going to be used to humans. Some hamsters aren't going to be interested in interacting with you. It could take months or even years before your hamster actually warms up to you. So if you're looking for a pet that is going to be cuddly and sit with you, a hamster isn't one that I necessarily would suggest.
Damage and destruction. Rabbits are much more destructive than you're gonna think because their teeth never stop growing. So think of a teething phase that just never ends. However, as your rabbit gets older and they learn right from wrong and you give them the proper toys, their chewing can be managed for sure. Just make sure that you bunny-proof their space.
Hamsters are rodents, so they are known for their front incisors and chewing things, but they aren't nearly as destructive as, say, a rabbit, because they are much smaller and they are going to be inside of an enclosure. They will chew wood, but not every hamster is into destroying everything in sight. A lot of the times you also are able to take your hamster out and free roam them for a bit and not have them like destroy your baseboards or chew up your carpet and things like that.
As far as travel goes, rabbits don't love to travel. They just really love their routine and they like to be home. So for the most part, they don't like to leave the house. And for pet sitters, it's important that you're finding a pet sitter who understands a rabbit versus a dog or cat. Since rabbits are prey animals, they can hide their illnesses, so it's important that if you're having someone take care of your pet, they know what to look out for if your rabbit isn't feeling well. That doesn't mean finding a pet sitter is impossible. That just means that you need to be really diligent about finding someone that you trust who's going to keep an eye on your rabbit and who knows what to look for.
When it comes to traveling, once you've brought your hamster home and put them in their enclosure, it's best that they stay put and that you're not taking them out on explorations to like the park or shopping or things like that, because it can be really stressful to the hamster. And of course, they're nocturnal/crepuscular, so they're not going to enjoy being woken up to go do those things. One exception, of course, is if you are going to the vet or you need to take them to a pet sitter or you're moving.
Let's talk about their smell. As long as you keep your rabbit's litter box under control, rabbits can be pretty odorless. Their fur and their bodies don't really produce any scent. The biggest smell that you're going to have is from their litter box, their hay and their urine. But because I keep my litter box contained, I don't smell it, and I use an air purifier, which keeps everything nice and clean. Now, if I were to not change her litter box every day, that would be a different discussion. But it's part of my morning routine. I change it every day, and the smell is completely fine.
Hamsters are very clean animals, and they shouldn't really have any odors at all. If you are starting to smell them or their enclosure, it's likely that you're not spot cleaning out their enclosure enough. Female Syrian hamsters do sometimes give off a smell of burning rubber, and this is when they go into heat about every 4 days, but it's nothing super bad. It's pretty manageable smell.
Lastly, let's talk about the vet. Rabbits are considered exotic pets, which means that they have to go to an exotic vet. They cannot just go to a standard vet that just sees dogs and cats. And because exotic vets are a little more rare, that typically means the vet bills are going to be a little more expensive. It's a supply and demand thing. So it's very, very important that when you get your rabbit, you find an exotic vet in an area near you so you know where to go in case of an emergency.
Hamsters, like rabbits, are also considered to be exotic pets, so they would need to see an exotic vet as well. Even though they're these really small animals, if they are sick or injured, they are required to see a vet. They don't necessarily need to have yearly examinations or get vaccines, but if you do notice that your hamster is ill or their behaviors are off or they're injured in any way, you do need to see the vet. And I highly would recommend setting aside at least that minimum $100. That is pretty much going to cover the exam fee if you do have to go to the vet, and that's not even including medications. So keep in mind that going to the vet can be expensive, and it's important to save for that type of emergency.
And there you have it, Buns. That is the difference between rabbits and hamsters. Again, a huge shout out to Victoria for helping us with this video. I hope that you maybe learned something, and maybe you even found a new YouTuber to follow. She is fabulous. Let me know down in the comments below what other animals you would like to see me compare to rabbits, and I will see you in our next video. Bye, Buns!